Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Access Me Salon, where I will be exploring thousands of access consciousness classes recorded over the last 30 years. The first recording from 1986 until 2022. Join me and find out who likes what class best. I will be interviewing guests from all over the world, people who came to Access very early and who recently joined. So come and explore the world of Access Me. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session of the Access Me Salon. Today with a very special, amazing guest, Pam Houghtelling. Welcome, Pam, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, David, for having me on because I'm very excited to talk about Access Me.
Okay, well, then let's go into medias res directly. What is the class that you chose from the Access Me library to explore today with our listeners?
Well, it's called the Bullet Class, and it's from 2006. And I started going to Access classes in 2008. So this is it's prior to, when I was taking classes. But in the last couple of years, it's been mentioned by Gary and Dane a few different times. And I had actually bought it from the Access shop last December and listened to it. But it was one of the first things as soon as the Access Me app came out that I was like, putting it in my queue to listen to.
So Bullet Class 2006, that was long before I found out about access consciousness in 2015. So Pam, what is so fascinating about this class that you chose to explore it today here in my salon?
Well, I'm going to go a little bit to the side and then get to that.
Okay, let's go.
Because when I started coming to Access classes, there was only in-person classes. There was no telecalls, no, nothing like what we're doing right now to be talking to everybody. And there wasn't even necessarily recordings. Like, the classes with Gary or Dane had recordings. But if you went to like bars or a foundation, the facilitator might know how to record things and they might not. There wasn't like a phone that you just hit a button and record everything. And so, but for me, I did get the recordings of my first bars class, my first foundation, and listening to those so contributed to me that, throughout all this time that I've been doing Access, I'm always listening to recordings, either the class I just recently did or going back to other classes. When they talked about this Bullet class, it was, kind of the way I've always chosen the classes I go to is the energy pops and I'm like, okay, it's time for me to attend that class or listen to this class. And so I got the recording. And what I loved about it is, first of all, when we talk about the clearing statement used to be a page long, it's that. Like, it's like,
Okay.
it's the olden days of the clearing. By the time I started 2 years later, it was the clearing statement more like what we're using today. But they're just going on and on and on and on and on and on. But what I really love about it is I'm like, they were saying, like, it's not saying the same thing, but they were saying even then the tools and the concepts that are like breaking things apart now. And so for me, it's like this timelessness. It's not, oh, this is an old class, I'm not going to get as much out of it. It's like they're saying it in a way that people could hear then. They have more available with it now, but it's like things go in a completely different way hearing this. And so I just listen and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, yes, that tool, that concept is so contributing to me. But it's different than what I'm getting when I go to a class now. And so I just love it.
So is there a specific topic that is that comes up in the bullet class? I mean, I had guests here that talked about benevolent capitalism. They talked about relationship. They talked about body. Is the bullet class, is it like the bullet that you use in a gun?
Well, I think it's more like it's going so fast and cut through everything.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they cover a lot of things. You know how, like, right now, if you were going to a class right now, we're talking about realms of creation, we're talking about clearing the basis of your reality. For that class, a lot of what's coming up is aversion therapy. Like,
Oh, that sounds interesting.
yeah,
What is that?
well, it's like, Gary talks about this, like, say you're trying to stop smoking. At that period of time, they might do things like give you drugs that make you nauseous if you smoke and make you smoke, right? So it's like you're trying to behaviorally condition yourself to not do something. And so they're clearing all these places where we've like limited ourselves to not be something.
Wow.
Right. And so it's like at that time, the clearings had a lot about aversions therapy. Now it has a lot about bases. There's something to me that's like, it's getting at the same things in different ways. And I can hear it in a new and different way. Yeah.
Wonderful. Not that makes me really, really curious to listen to it, because this is one of the classes I haven't listened to yet. And of course, I wasn't there when it was recorded. So you said listening to you listen a lot to classes, and you're not getting bored, and it's not old. What is the benefit for you listening to classes again as again? For those listeners who have not attended an Access class and are about to explore the app, what is the benefit of listening to a class again and again and again?
Well, I'll tell you about when I first started going to Access classes. My very first bars class, I was like, this is what I've always known was possible, but I couldn't put to word. I didn't have the words for it. It was like, I know this, and now I have a way to actually interact with it and play with it and use it and explore. And what, if you've ever been to an Access class, it's like, or had a session, it creates so much space and a sense of you and what's possible. And I find I'm being in the world in a different way when I'm been immersed in a class. And so, I drove 3.5 hours to go to this bars class, and I came home, and it was like, I knew something else was possible, but I also was right there with my kids and my husband and all the things I usually have to do. And for me, listening to the class replay, I could choose again to be that space. And at that time, I was, I had my own business, and it was something where I had to like pick up the phone and call people. And it was so hard. Like, I would go hike for 2 hours to be able to come in and get a little bit of work done. So what I would do is, whenever I started going into like contraction and stuff, I would go hike and listen to the class. And, I was introduced, even before I took that class, part of how I got there, I was introduced to the Access clearing statement and the idea of who does this belong to. And just those two tools so changed that I could, just clear things and pick up the phone instead of sitting there agonizing for hours. But yeah, I found that the recordings allowed me to not go back to what the class was, but actually to keep delving more and more deeply into what was being offered and the change that was possible and things like that. And it also helped me start really living the tools, so that instead of it being something that was, I go to a class and I feel great at the class, and then I come home and, I have my life again. It allowed me to integrate the tools into my everyday life, because if I started feeling heavy or stuck or contracted or like I'm in my stuff, I would put on a recording and be hearing the clearings and, hearing the discussions. But also it's like you always hear it differently. So I've listened to things on the Access Me app that I was at that class, and who I am now and how I hear it is I've changed a lot, and there's still always something there for me, a new insight, a new awareness. So for me, it's having the recordings to listen to has been a huge part of how I've created the change I'd like to create. If there was no recordings, then I'd be sitting there taking notes and stuff. But I think it would be a bit more challenging to bring these tools into my everyday life so vibrantly without having recordings to listen to.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Pam, you are a very prominent person now in Access Consciousness. I think everybody working with Access or being a facilitator knows you. I want to ask you some questions that these people probably don't know about you.
Okay.
So you said you started Access in 2008. Do you remember and you said that normally BAS classes, foundations classes weren't recorded. Gary recorded all, let's call it the core classes. So classes he facilitated and Dane facilitated were recorded. Do you remember your very first core class, your first class with Gary that you attended?
Yeah, well, first of all, there weren't very many different kinds of classes then. Like, there was bars, there was foundation level 1, which is now the foundation class. And there was level 2 and 3, which is now choice for possibilities. There was a 7-day and the facilitator training, and then some, special topic classes. But there wasn't all the stuff that we have now. So I did bars foundation in level 1 with someone who just happened to come through New Mexico once a year to see his mother. There was no facilitators in my state. This was like, David, this was the olden days.
What do you mean by olden days? 2008 is not that long ago. I mean, at least it seems like yesterday, doesn't it?
There was less than 400 facilitators in the world.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So you'd had to really travel to go get these classes. And so to be able to just drive 3.5 hours for the one time a year this guy came through, I was like, yes. So I did, bars foundation level 1. And then the next month I went to level 2 and 3, and it was facilitated by Gary. And, it was just,
what year was that? What year was
that? Was 2008.
2008. And where was the class?
It was in somewhere in Utah. It wasn't Salt Lake City. It was maybe St. George, something like that, Utah. And that was when Dane would be in the back of the room doing sessions, right? and yeah, everything was recorded. But actually, back then, you could choose to buy the recording or not. So actually a lot of the classes from back then I did buy the recordings, but sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I, didn't have that cash. And, so I loved it when they changed it to all those classes with Gary and Dane. The recordings come with the class and the clearing loops and the everything. So
beautiful. So do you remember your very first question, the very first time you got up on a mic and asked Gary a question?
I have no idea. because what happens is you ask the question, you clear things, it changes, and now it doesn't exist anymore. So
Good. So if anyone is curious out there and wants to find out, the very first question Pam Houghtelling asked when she came along, where would they need to look for? You
they would
said.
look for a actually, you know what? I was mistaken. That was my second level 2 and 3. My first level 2 and 3 was Ventura in 2008 with Dane. And it is one of the first things I listened to when I got the app. I listened to the benevolent capitalism class because we were at the new benevolent capitalism class. So I was like, let me go listen to the old one. I listened to the Ventura level 2 and 3. I listened to the bullet class. But I'll tell you, sometimes I listen to a whole class, but more often what I do is I just open the app and I scroll and I hit play and I listen to whatever that is for a while.
That would actually be my next question. When you open an app and when you're not like for years in Access knowing what would be your advice for someone really new who just wants to start exploring it? How to choose, where to begin? What would you
Okay.
suggest?
Well, what I'd say is if you haven't done any access classes, I would start with intros because the intros are short, but they're also geared towards people who don't know a lot about access. On the app, you'll find everything from intros to really advanced classes. And you certainly can go jump into the advanced classes and you might be like, what is this stuff? But one of our basic tools is ask questions and follow the energy. So honestly, I would just ask yourself, where would I like to start, and scroll around and see what appeals to you and click that and start listening. But then as you're listening, if you're like, what is this stuff? I'd like some baby steps. Then start with some of the intros. There's a lot of them on there. And, like we'll joke about Gary's not really capable of doing an intro. And at this point, Dane isn't either. Like they, they just jump in. But at the same time, there is always that awareness that there's people who don't know what the clearing statement is or haven't been introduced to things. And there's some amazing introductory classes. Being You, Changing the World is it's shifted over the years from 3.5 to 3 days, but Dr. Dane here facilitates that has no prereqs. So any Being You, Changing the World class will be give you a way in to what all this is, but really, like, there's no structure to it. Yes, if you're taking classes, you go to bars and then foundation and then CFP, but on this app, you can just play. And what I love, one of the things I love about it is often in a class, Gary or Dane, Simone, like, Joe facilitator, who you're going to their foundation, they'll bring up a class or, a telecall or something that's been going on recently and a tool from it. And what I love is now I could just, like, they mentioned the bullet class. It's like, oh, I could go listen to that. They mentioned this other thing. I could go find it and I put it in my queue so that I can, find it and listen to it. So I use the app two ways. One is I heard of this, I want to go listen to it, or I remember it and I want to go listen to it. But the other thing is that just what's going to contribute to me today. And what's really interesting is, from all these years, I have 0.5 terabyte of recordings on my computer, right? So they're all there. And like I said, I listen to them. Usually I'm listening to the classes I've just been to recently, so I want to re-listen again and again. And what I'm finding is with the app, I'm going and listening to things that I could have been listening to. They're on my computer, but I don't. So that's one of the things I love about it is it's, it just gives me the chance to just delve in and it's all right there. The other thing I love about it is, I don't know, it just kind of shows you the scope of things like, it used to be in a level 2 and 3 class, there was a lot of material on X-Men, relationships, and different things. And there's just so much over the years that it can't all stay in that class. So now there's specialties on all of that. And you can be like, oh, I'm going to go listen to all the X-Men classes, or I'm going to go listen to Right Riches classes. Yeah.
In the meantime, like 15 years fast forward, you now work with access consciousness. So you are also leading the department for specialty classes. So from level 2 and 3, where everything was covered, can you just give a short overview? What do we have now? How many specialties are there? And are they all in the app?
Yeah, there's about 16 specialties. I actually lose track because, some of them, there's a few that aren't very active anymore, but there's the ones that aren't. So 3-day body classes, there's no body process and body process, body classes in the app. Actually, that's not true. There's a few snuck in, but, basically body classes are to do hands-on body work. So those aren't there, but, and I don't know if Talk to the Entities is there. There might be some, there might not, but everything else, I think we've got either a little bit or a lot of stuff. There's not supposed to be CF trainings, but I'm like, oh, there's a Right Riches CF training snuck in.
Nice. So when you talk about Right Riches, this covers the topic money. There is a big topic about relationship. There is a topic about even animals. Then there is a topic, all these topics. Is there any area in life that is not covered? I think that's easier to answer.
Yeah, no, what I'd say is, access tools and access classes cover every area of life. And it could be that it's coming up in a foundation class. It could be that there's a specialty topic class that Gary and Dane did, or there's an entire, when we talk about an access specialty, it's licensed facilitators and, a range of classes all on that topic. There's conscious parents, there's conscious horse, there's, there's stuff for bodies. There's, the actual body process classes aren't on there, but there's Right Body for You. So there's pragmatic psychology. There's so many different things, Right Recovery for You. There's a lot of different classes on there. And, sometimes people are like, well, why would somebody want to now come to a class when they can just do the app? Right. So it fills two different aspects of things. For me, going to a class has always been, it's the people who show up, the questions that are asked, the facilitation that happens is like opening doors to new possibilities. When I go to a class is when, I want to do big change, and then at home, I'm using all the tools, I'm changing all kinds of things, my life's improving. And then it's like, time for a class, and then I go through a big change. And so, to me, listening to the classes on the app, I can have that big change. Nice. Being in the classes now, it's when the world is changing. Like when, we have a class this coming up in a couple of days called Maestro, that changes everything. It changes all of us who are there. It changes what's possible in the world. And so to me, the live classes I'm part of and contributing to and receiving from things changing now for the world. And then the app is like me. Like, oh, wow, this is just what I needed to hear today.
So you are not only working for Access, you're also a certified facilitator. So you facilitate your own classes on top of everything you do for Access.
Yes.
My last question to you.
With Access, I work with Access. I facilitate, and I am a client. Like, I love attending classes. So
as a facilitator, when you facilitate, do you use Access Me as a resource? Because a lot of facilitators have the point of view, oh my God, people, they ask you everything. How should I know everything? Do you use the Access Me app as a resource, as a facilitator?
Yes. Actually, because I'll say like, hey, if you have the Access Me app, there's this class. This would be like an amazing, it might be for this particular person and the question that they're asking, like, hey, there's so much more to this. And you can go listen to the Access Me app. There's another thing we have called the reference materials, which we've had a long time. And that's like everything that's been taken out of the manuals over the last 30 years. And as facilitator, well, as the public, people can buy it once they've taken the class that's a prereq. But we read those reference materials. It's like 3,000 pages of material, because then it's not that you remember it all, but it's there in your awareness. Like when someone asks something, it's like, you know what to do with it. Or it's, hey, I know that's in the reference materials. When we take a break, I'm going to go look it up and then come back and we'll facilitate this more. So to me, the Access Me app is like it contributes to me in several ways. So one is just by everything I'm listening to, then I have that available as I'm facilitating. But also, there's amazing classes that I've either been to and I'm now reminded of, or I haven't been to, but I just listened to. And I do, like in private sessions and stuff, I find myself, now I used to be like, oh, read this book. And I'm like, well, read this book. And there's this amazing class that you can go listen to. And, so to me, it just broadens what's possible for me as a facilitator, both from kind of the exposure I have to so many more tools, but also just that it is a resource. Like, if you're really interested in a different way of being in the world with business, there's business classes, there's, benevolent capitalism. And then, and you might then want to go to a Joy Business class because, I've listened to it there and I want to ask my questions. I'd like to get facilitated on my life and what's going on with me. And then you go to a class. So
you mentioned a lot of specialists and other things that are out there in the app. Last question to you. If there was a second favorite class on the Access Me app, what would that be?
Well, it's interesting. I can't say because there's not one.
Okay.
One of the things I listened to a lot right at the beginning was the RAS, right? So that's where Gary's channeling. And, that's kind of what Access started from and it's to hear, again, it's like, this is everything Access is now. Like it's been there the whole time. And so I love listening to those. And it's not a specific thing. It's that whatever I need in the moment is there. I've been having some different, stuff going on with my body for a few years. And I was listening to a class on there, and the facilitator he was talking about using interesting point of view. And he was an athlete and had injuries in his lower legs, and he was getting a massage. And he said he was just the whole time during the massage, he was saying, interesting point of view. I have this point of view that I'm injured. Interesting point of view. I have this point of view about my hamstrings, like all this stuff. And when he was done, the massage therapist was like, what happened to your body? Like, it's so different today. And, and he was like, he used that to come out of the I'm injured and to be able to choose something different with his body. And so I heard that and I was like, because I was like not going horseback riding when other people were. So I was like, oh, this hurts and this hurts. And I was like, well, if I was willing to be interesting point of view, and I actually asked my body what works for it and was present in the moment, and it helped me undo so much stuff. And so that was just what I needed to hear in that moment in my life with what was going on with my body. And it opened a door that and then I'm the one who walked through it, right? I'm the one who used the tools and looked at my life and asked a friend for facilitation and changed things. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
Wonderful. Pam, thank you so much for this inspiring conversation. I think I need to go and listen to the bullet class now.
Yes,
Thank
do.
you
It's
so
it's
much.
amazing. It covers everything, really. It's just amazing.
Thank you so much, and keep enjoying exploring the Access Me app. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.